Hey, this one shift will literally quadruple your productivity in the next probably 2 to 3 months. And if you are curiously curious about this, I know I can speak English, I promise. If you're curious about this, I want you to pay attention. I'm gonna break it all down for you right now. So in our lives, there's a single shift you can make that allows you to kind of perceive the world you live in differently, but also this one's gonna help you tactically be able to get more done. It's an interesting shift. It's a shift in barriers. So like, let's say I am this person and I got this barrier. We'll call it a boundary, right? What we have in life is we have these boundaries, and what happens for these boundaries is we set them, kind of. We'll say, you know what, I'm not gonna smoke anymore, or you know what, I'm gonna start focusing on my work some more. You know what, I'm gonna stop wandering around the park for an hour after work. I'm gonna make sure I get home faster to get some things going. Whatever it might be, there's some things that you got to think about. You can realistically have a barrier and a boundary you set, but you don't keep very well. And if you're watching this right now, my guess is this: you're an ambitious human being. Like you may have made 6, 7 figures. Who knows? You got some big dreams, and that's great and all. But there's extra level you want to get to. And the problem is you aren't going to get that level if you don't have the ability to get things done in a timely manner that allows you to get to that level. I don't care what you buy or how much you invest in different aspects. If you don't have the time to consume and execute stuff, you're still going to fall short. So what I want you to think about is like, all right, well, how can I increase my productivity? And we're gonna talk about one thing, which is the boundaries. And here is how this happens. There's two sides of a boundary, right? There's always gonna be what's inside the boundary and outside the boundary. And when I look at this, I think about what needs to be first kept inside the boundary. It's gonna be all this space, we're gonna call it inside your boundary is gonna be all these things that have gotta be kept internally. And what this looks like is the internal are the things that you know need to be done to be able to reach your goal. Maybe it's going to be internally, I'm going to keep a focus. Internally, I'm going to keep emotions ready to go. Internally, I'm going to keep motivation. I'm going to keep confidence. I'm going to keep everything inside this boundary and barrier so that when I start thinking about what I'm creating for my life, I have everything inside that needs to be there, and you don't want it to seep outside. You don't want to lose your motivation or lose your focus or lose your emotional energy, because when that stuff goes outside the barrier, you struggle. You can't be productive. Productivity is not just a logical thing. It's an emotional thing. Can I have this plan that I created actually take place? Can I focus long enough on this situation and focus long enough on this project, even though I may not feel like it right now, but I know I got to be productive, and you build that willpower and that productivity muscle this way. But it makes itself possible by keeping everything in. If you can keep some things in and keep them in consistently, well, now I can uphold that boundary, that barrier. And I'm going to talk in a moment about a cell, because a cell wall is kind of interesting how this works. I'm going to make a note so you don't forget that. But a cell wall works this way. There's going to be a pressure inside and outside the cell wall. Well, the inside pressure ends up being the things I'm talking about that keep you inside this barrier safe and protected and able to get more things done. Outside's an interesting space. Now, outside, if you're talking about a cell wall, outside I have all the things that want to attack my focus and take all these things, bust holes in my barriers and my boundary. And what are these things? I think the question shouldn't be what are they as much as who. Who are these things? Because who are the people that actually are going to be putting these things in your life? Who is Facebook and Instagram? You're probably watching this right now, right? Who is the different bodies that are actually entering your space, trying to poke a hole in your focus, in your emotion, in your energy, in your motivation, all these different aspects? It wants to poke a hole in the boundary, in the barrier. And this is what happens is this barrier gets put up and it pokes holes. You start scrolling before you know it, your hour's gone by and you're just like, man, where'd the hour go? Or you want to go to bed and you go to bed an hour later because you watched some series of videos on YouTube. This happens. They're not all bad. It's when you have that barrier set. It also happens to be who being people. It could be, maybe it's your best friend and you guys are, going to go out and hang out and it keeps asking, hey, do you want to go do X, Y, or Z? But you're like, hey, I really got to focus on this, but they keep on bothering. And eventually they may poke a hole. Boom, they get in. Let's go hang out. Now, all of a sudden your focus pours out, your energy pours out, your motivation pours out. You get none of it. The cell wall breaks down, everything floods in. Now you're out hanging out, partying. You lost focus completely on that book you wanted to write, the podcast you wanted to launch, I don't know, maybe the health you wanted to have that was better for your body. You lose sight of it all because something got into the barrier. It also happens at work. You have people that'll walk by and want to start talking to you in the middle of doing something for work. And next thing you know, your focus is gone, right? And you're an hour into work and you're like, man, I didn't get anything I planned to get done, right? It could be your boss poking. It could be a phone ringing that you don't need to pick up, but you pick up. A text message that comes in that you answer immediately and break your focus and flow. There could be an email that pops up, and because it's up, all of a sudden you go, oh, I got to go look at it. Like, you don't have to go look at it. Since I've been sitting here doing videos for you, I'm seriously looking at an inbox that's at like 36 emails right now. And just so you know, I don't like a lot of emails. I'm not a big fan of a lot of emails, but I'm not going to let that interrupt my work for you right now. So you got to start thinking about, okay, in the aspect of what I'm doing, where am I able to start looking at the barrier, keeping the wall up, keeping it set, and shifting the way that I set and keep barriers, set and keep boundaries? Because now what happens if I can shift perspectives and say, look, internally, there's a couple things I can do. One, I can start focusing on what exactly, like pinpoint, like a target. I'm going to pinpoint the areas that I need to work on. Maybe you do need to be better internally at managing your own emotions. Maybe you get this imposter syndrome when you're trying to create something, and that imposter syndrome, maybe it makes you procrastinate a little bit. Maybe it makes you lose focus pretty quickly. Maybe it forces you to lack the drive and the energy to really push forward. Because what happens if you don't have that drive and energy, you can be as focused as you want. You can have the plan all you want, but you won't be able to actually get the plan executed. And if you can't be able to be laser focused with your time, what ends up happening is you end up getting nothing done. And then guess what happens? You got nothing done. You know you got nothing done. You feel bad because you got nothing done. And then now it's like, oh, I'm a horrible person. I'm a horrible human. You don't like yourself. And now you start thinking, see, I am the imposter. I'm not that person. And it wasn't even that you weren't prepared or capable. It's just that you didn't have a system in place to keep yourself focused. You probably were very capable. You probably are incredibly intelligent. You probably have all the things you need, but you're not giving yourself the structure to actually show it off. It's kind of like saying, if I got a camera without a tripod, how's the camera going to get the good shot? It can't if the system and structure isn't there. You got to have it dialed in. And then when it comes to outside, you have to actually train people. Train people. I'm not kidding. You got to train other human beings how to interact with you. And what that looks like is being smart about, man, what you do and don't let into your life. If somebody walks up to you, tell them, hey, I can't talk to you right now. Set an appointment. I got something to work on. Say no to them. It's a big piece, being able to say no. If the phone rings, never answer it. Let it go to voicemail. If a text message comes in, let that text message sit. You don't got to answer the text message right now. No one's going to die if you don't get back to the text message in 10 minutes, unless you're a doctor and you save lives, obviously. But the idea is like, you're going to be okay if all of a sudden somebody asks you what you want for lunch and you don't answer them for a few minutes because you're working on something. I'm telling you right now, that is one of the biggest hindrances to you having success, is not being able to manage and train the people outside of you for your distractions. And when I say train, it actually does mean that sometimes. Somebody may come up to you and say, hey, you want to go hang out? And you're like, no, I got to work on this. Come on. No, I got to work on this. Come on. All right. And then you go. You got to train that person. Next thing they come ask you, no, I can't hang out. Are you sure? Yeah, I can't. Come on. I can't. All right. And they walk away. You've now trained that person that when you say no, you're not going to go. And the next time it becomes less and less asks. It's an actual training of human beings. So when I say make a singular shift, I want to make sure I'm clear to you on what this is. This singular shift, it's this shift here, this boundary, like a cell wall. If there's no pressure on the outside, the cell expands and explodes. If there's no pressure on the inside, the cell collapses. You are this cell, and there's going to be constant pressure inside and outside, and you have to make sure you're matching it, which means you got to create a pressure inside so you don't collapse on yourself, and make sure you realize the pressure outside, it might get greater. As you get better, things get greater. Balance it by having internally everything that you need, and then what allows you to do outside is manage those things outside. Keep the barriers up. Keep the barriers strong. It's good, but here's the cool part. You're not a cell. You're not always going to be encapsulated. You don't always have to be tucked away from the world. You can go live your life. You can do whatever you want, because productivity is periodic. It's in this moment in time when I'm focused on this one thing, I got to be productive then. And what's great, what I really think you should think about, is at the back end of being productive in that hour, here's what it does. When you leave that hour or you leave that day, you get to go into the next parts of your day free of mind, free of stress, just able to kind of hang out and do your thing. And the reason it's so important is because that's where you start getting the juices to fill up the internals, the motivation, the energy, because you got something done. You feel great about yourself. Then you go into the rest of your life, you feel good. You got some stuff completed. You feel awesome. You can live your life and come back, and it creates a good balance. So for you, when you want to start thinking about how do you quadruple your productivity, it's by not getting distracted, staying focused, getting things done. Because if you can learn how to do this, you'll find that every hour when, say previously in an hour's time, you got distracted or somebody bothered you, you might have got 10 to 15 minutes of actual focused time. Well, now you're in the flow. No one's interrupting you. You're not getting distracted. You get actually 60 minutes to that 15. That's 4 times the focused flow. By the end of a week, you've gotten more done than anybody got done in a month, quite literally. So if you can learn to do this, it'll triple or quadruple your productivity, which means you increase the speed and the pace towards your goals. And by the end of a year, like think about it, by the end of a year, if done right, you'll have 4 times or 4 years. Everybody else is distracted 1 year. Think about what your life can look like at that point. So make this choice, set your boundaries, keep them, make this shift. You'll change your life.